Hello, welcome boils and ghouls and all the creeps in between. Midnight Cryptworx here. Hope everybody's having a great day. I know it's been a long time. I know. And I know a lot of you really kind of know what's going on with me. I lost my mom and it hit me hard. We were extremely close to the point where we talked every day. I'm the only child, so it was hard. So I didn't slip into a depression or anything, but dealing with it has been really hard. So I have been really neglecting my channel, and I'm sorry about that. With that being said, I want to try some new stuff. I don't know if you guys are into this or if you would like me to do more videos like this, please let me know. But I'm going to be doing some commentary videos. Now I want to preface by saying this. I am not here to bash Christians. I'm not here to bash their beliefs or anything. These are solely my opinions as commentary. I'm not here to tell you who you need to worship or who you don't need to worship. These are just my opinions as a seasoned witch. So I've been practicing witchcraft for about 26 years, since I was 13. I'm 39 now, so it's been a while. In my teenage years, I did kind of dabble in Christianity a little bit. You know, that's the religion loosely that my family practiced. But it wasn't a big time in my life. Witchcraft was probably the most consistent thing besides my mother that I've had in my life so far. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this style of making videos. Let me know if you do and you want to see more of these. And please, if you find these TikTokers, please don't send any hate to anybody. That's not why I'm doing this. I'm doing it mostly to educate people on what witchcraft is and witchcraft isn't, and the misconceptions about spell work and witchcraft. Alright, let's do this thing.
Welcome to the crypt.
We would literally write things on paper and then burn it in the middle of our moon circle. And I'm thinking to myself, wow, I'm literally writing, I release my depression, and I'm giving it to the devil. I'm literally burning the release of my depression to Satan. Yeah. And then guess what he did with it? Made me more depressed, and I came into agreement with those spirits of depression and anxiety, and they actually consumed me.
Yeah, because there's real revelation. You see how the devil always distorts what God has made. So God instituted sacrifice for sin. We see in the Old Testament, the wages of sin is death. They had to make burnt offerings and blood offerings for sin. That's part of his righteous law to deal with sin. That's how he dealt with it. So the devil's like, great, let's pervert that. Let's take that ritual of burning and blood, and let's have you make all these sacrifices to demons,
Give
to
it to
deities.
Me and I'll have my way.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so to me, basically what she's saying is when she practiced witchcraft, one of the things she would do was write down on a piece of paper what she wanted to manifest. For an example, to get rid of depression, which, by the way, witchcraft doesn't just get rid of depression. That's not how it works. And then she would burn it in order to kind of, solidify the manifestation or whatever, if you will. So my issue with this is, so haven't Christians been known to have book burnings of literally taking occult books, putting them in a pile, and letting it, putting it aflame, right? So it sounds a little hypocritical to me, saying that, well, if you write something on a piece of paper and burn it, then the devil is going to twist it around and kind of give you more of what you don't want. So with that logic, wouldn't the devil use book burnings to do the same thing? I have questions. Another thing too is they were mentioning about the sacrifice that Jesus made on the cross and stuff, and how that his blood washed, you know, everybody's sin and stuff. Last time I checked, according to Christianity, I thought rituals like bloodletting and sacrifice and stuff like that, I thought all of that was from Satan anyway. I thought Satan needed sacrifices. I thought, you know, that was a big no-no, you know, to use blood in rituals and stuff like that. But it's okay for the Christian God to do it, and then when the devil reverts it, it's bad. Again, so many questions. So let's check out another video.
Yeah, I think we're just gonna go there. I think we're just gonna talk about it. How I went from a second generation white witch to a follower of Jesus Christ and on fire for God. So for as long as I can remember, I have always felt things, experienced things, seen things, heard things that weren't typical for anyone else, and didn't understand where that was coming from or why. I think the first time that I remember like identifying myself and speaking that word curse over myself as a witch was when I was probably like 7. I had watched Matilda for the first time, and in that movie I watched this really young girl. I was probably the same age as her when I started watching it. She was going through the same things that I would experience. She would like feel things, see things, things would happen, and she never could identify it until she came out as a witch.
Okay, I'm gonna pause right there. I have seen Matilda too. It has been years and years and years and years and years. But I remember Matilda being telekinetic, right? I don't remember her coming out as a witch at all. So if I'm wrong, please leave it down in the comments if I'm wrong, because I could be. It's been forever since I've seen that movie. But that's all I remember. I don't really remember her feeling stuff or stuff like that. I just remember her being able to move things with her mind. But again, if I'm wrong, I apologize.
And I was like, oh my gosh, that's what I am. I got into a relationship with someone who was extremely abusive on all fronts: physical, emotional, sexual, spiritual, just awful. And it stripped me of every identity that I thought I had. Every bit of what I thought I was or who I was stripped from me. One of those relationships where I just felt like nothing at the end of it. By the time I was 18 years old, I had no self-worth. Thought I was completely unworthy of love, just worthless to the absolute core. And I just didn't have any identity anymore. And so when I was about 13 years old, my grandmother started to be really outward around me about her identity as a good witch, a white witch.
Okay, first of all, I want to say I am so sorry that she has been through this, been through an awful relationship. I can completely relate. I have been in a very emotional AB relationship. It's YouTube. I don't know if I have to censor like TikTok. So I completely understand how it feels. However, I don't really know why she mentioned that and then completely pivoted to where she was 13 years old and her grandmother was telling her that the grandmother was a white witch. And I don't like how she did the white witch. It's almost like saying if somebody says they're a white witch, then they're just lying. That all witchcraft is inherently evil, which isn't true. So let's see if maybe she explains a little further why she mentioned that relationship, and moving on to her grandmother telling her about her practice.
And I remembered, like, oh my gosh, I remember that movie. I remember Matilda finding her identity. My grandmother's telling me this is her identity, and I resonate so much with both of them. She's right, this is for me. And she would constantly speak that over me, that word curse that I had come into agreement with at 7 years old. She was now speaking over me through a generational curse, through a curse on my bloodline to, in Satan's eyes, hopefully and eventually pass through me to my kids. She was speaking over me. You have the gift, you have the ability, you're operating in light. Don't ignore it, don't push it away, don't be scared, it's good.
Wait, word curse? What? I'm so confused by what she means by that. Just her grandmother saying that she's a white witch and that, you know, she is too, and to, you know, embrace it, not be afraid of it. That is a curse. Again, so many questions.
And so I started to really take on that identity. It started with very innocent seeming things, right? Like I said, you know, the Bible says that Satan comes disguised as an angel of light. And so that's seemingly exactly what it was. It was just light work, right? It started with zodiac signs. It started with astrology and birth charts. It started with horoscopes. It started with crystals, and then it went into manifestation, and then it went into the Enneagram, and just these things that seem so innocent, right?
All right, can we stop with the... It's too much. It's getting too much. It's giving Joey from Friends. Like, use it correctly.
Wolves disguised in sheep's clothing, really is what it was. And it wasn't until maybe 15 that I started to get really into the craft. 15 years old, I got my first spell book, which was passed down to me generationally through my grandmother. I started doing spells and got into much deeper things like astro projecting, opening my third eye. I was traveling in my dreams. I was just absolutely consumed with finding that next level of consciousness, becoming my highest self, awakening my inner goddess, whatever that was. I was trying to become my own god, trying to paint my own future.
Okay, so astral projecting and astral projection and trying to reach a higher level of consciousness, that's not necessarily witchcraft. Bunch of different religions and spiritual people practice this stuff. You can be, I don't know if you can be an atheist and do it, because, you know, atheists don't really believe in anything kind of supernatural, but you could be agnostic and do these things, right? It's just about, well, depending on what you're talking about, if you're talking about finding a higher sense of consciousness, or, you know, developing better with your higher self, that's not necessarily magic. That's just trying to better yourself and trying to understand yourself a little more. And astral projection is just almost dream walking in a way. They are kind of different, but it's not necessarily witchcraft. So I think she's just kind of lumping different kinds of occult stuff into one kind of giant rubber ball of you know, what she thinks is evil, and I don't think that's really fair.
And along with that really deep witchcraft of tarot cards and Ouija boards and all these things, these portals that I was opening every day, came absolute torment. I started to experience things that I could only imagine in the depths of hell, to be honest with you. I started experiencing intense sleep paralysis. I remember one night I woke up in the middle of the night around 3 a.m., which I'm sure I'm not the first person that you've heard say that. There's a reason for that. The 3 a.m. mark is a way to mock the Trinity, the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. I would wake up constantly from knocks on my window, 3 knocks. I always saw things in multiples of 3.
So the reason she was probably feeling a lot of negative energy and stuff as she was doing tarot cards and Ouija boards and stuff like that was she didn't know how to do it correctly. You can't just use, especially Ouija boards. Tarot is a little bit different in my opinion. But for example, Ouija boards, you can't just take out the board and start, you know, talking to spirits. I've always said that's kind of like when you, if you were to open your door, you know, at your house and say, hey, to the whole neighborhood and to the whole world, come on in, you know, let's have a party, let's talk, you know, whatever, and not really knowing who you're inviting in, and without any protection, you know, like having, you know, pew pew or any kind of self-defense. She probably wasn't putting up any barriers, any kind of protection. She probably wasn't casting a circle beforehand. She probably wasn't saying hello at the beginning. She probably wasn't saying goodbye at the end. there's a lot of things that you need to do in order to protect yourself when you're using this stuff. And I think that's probably why she was having a lot of negativity during this stuff. And also about the number 3, she said that she, you know, would wake up at 3 a.m. and everything would come in threes, and that 3 was mocking the Trinity and stuff. I'm not sure how she got that 3 a.m. and everything coming in threes was mocking the Trinity. I have had experience where there's been a lot of things coming in threes that are very positive. I've had things come in threes that are extremely negative. It's just, that's how spirit works sometimes, you know. It's not necessarily mocking the Christian God or the Trinity just by you waking up randomly at 3 a.m. By having things happen in threes isn't necessarily evil. I could, you know, turn that around and be like, you know, if I believe, well, I do believe in the Christian God, I just don't like him. That's just my opinion. But if I were to say, you know, maybe it was a good thing that you were having these things at, you know, at 3 a.m. or having these things in threes, you know, maybe it's God showing you a sign, you know. I'm trying to understand why she's assuming that is mocking the Trinity.
But I woke up one night and I couldn't move. My body was like chained to my bed. My mind was awake, my eyes were open, but I couldn't move. And I heard laughing, bouncing off the walls, just like bouncing off the walls in my room. It was a little girl laughing, and I could hear voices over top of each other, like coming on to me, like kind of like grabbing at me like that. And they were saying like, we got her, laughing. And I remember I couldn't wake up, I couldn't scream, I couldn't do anything. And I was stuck there, and it felt like I was stuck there for hours. Really, I'm sure in the grand scheme of things it was only a couple minutes, but that's only one experience that I had. There was another time where I was sitting in my living room meditating. I was sitting in a yoga pose, unknowingly channeling Hindu gods, literally right there in the middle of my house. And I was starting to see in the spirit what was in front of me. Like I was there with my eyes open, and I wasn't. My eyes were closed, and I could see my entire living room. I could see my house just as it was in the physical realm. But I watched a demon walk from my hallway, which is on like the top right hand side of where I'm seeing my vision, walk through the living room, stand right in front of me. This thing was probably 10 feet tall, this black, dark, like lanky looking, like almost like an alien, no face, just stood right in front of me, got down in my face and was like this, and just looked at me like that for what seemed like hours. I couldn't scream, I couldn't move, I was stuck. I was so oppressed by this spirit that I literally physically couldn't move.
Again, I don't think she was doing things right. I don't think she had any protections. And when she said that she was unknowingly summoning Hindu God, I don't really understand what she meant by that. But the thing that she saw when she was meditating that was kind of looking at her, if you're meditating and again you're not doing your due diligence by protecting yourself, anything could come through. And that's not necessarily evil. Just because it looks scary to you and dark and tall and lanky doesn't necessarily mean it's evil. They could have just been curious, as, you know, somebody that's in a trance. That's what it sounded like to me that you were in. That's, you know, just letting spirits, you know, come to you like that. They were probably very curious. And it very well could have been something evil because, again, you're not protecting yourself. I'm just assuming. She hasn't said that she wasn't doing these things. I am just assuming by what she's saying.
There were so many times like this, and it even started to affect people that were outside of what I was practicing. My roommate calls me one night, 3 a.m., as I'm having panic attacks every night at 3 a.m., anywhere from 3 to 6 hours long. She called me, and I was like, why is she awake? It's normal for me to be awake at this hour, but why is she awake? And she calls me and says, you need to come in here right now. There's somebody in my room. And I was like, what? There's someone in your room, you want me to come in there and you're calling me on the phone? Like, this doesn't make sense. And so I ran in there, opened the door, and the look on her face, I'll never forget it. She told me later that when I opened that door, the man, the person, the demon that was standing in her room flew. Like it went out of the window as soon as she saw me open the door. And I asked God later in my walk, like, why did that happen? And he exposed to me that demon no longer needed to be in her room when you entered it, because I was so oppressed by so many demons. I was being absolutely tormented.
Okay, so she just said that God told her that the reason why this demon, I'm using, quotes from her book, that the demon flew out the window or door or whatever, as soon as she came in the room, because the demon no longer needed to be there because you walked in the room and because you were so oppressed by demons. Did I hear that right? Because I'm very confused. If you're tormented by demons, why would they be at your friend's room and then leave as soon as you walk in? You're the one that they want, right? So why are they being all sneaky deaky and, as soon as you walk in a room, they skedaddle? I feel like if that was true, that they would be with you always and wouldn't just leave when you enter the room. Maybe I heard that wrong. If I did, let me know in the comments. Let's finish this video.
I would see things, I would hear things. I was just consumed by the spirit guides that used to direct me in light and love, were now nasty beings. They were mean to me. They told me to do awful things. I would see things, I would do that all the time. My friends would be like, what are you looking at? I'm like, you didn't see that? I was absolutely controlled by the demonic at this point, and I thought that I was being, awakened to a new level, but really I was being absolutely tormented by depression, anxiety, sleep paralysis, demonic encounters every day. And I could sit here and tell you guys all of the horrible things that this brought into my life, how much I was seeking to find identity in that, and how much the New Age and witchcraft told me that I would reach this place where I would have abundant peace and light and operate in goodness, and I never felt it. I was seeking in those things everything that God could give me, everything that came from Jesus, the fruit of the Spirit, love, joy, peace. I was seeking for it in witchcraft, and I was promised that I would eventually get there and never did. And that's what the devil wants you to think, is that you will eventually arrive, and you won't. These things can only be found in Christ. And once I found them, he delivered me. He set me free. Love, joy, and peace were not something that I was striving for. It's something that I had eternally, and Satan could no longer take those things from me. He absolutely changed my life. He took every single thing that I was struggling with, the torment, and he sent it back to the gates of hell where it came from. And I promise you, he will do the same for you.
Okay, first of all, I want to say that I'm really happy and glad that she's in a place to where she is happy and she feels peace and that she doesn't feel tormented anymore. And, she found her way. But I don't think it's fair at all to blame everything on witchcraft. This is my problem with Christianity. Everything is blamed on the devil. The devil did this, the demons did this, Satan, deceived me, but at the same time claiming that, you have free will. It doesn't sit well with me because it doesn't make any sense. If your God loved you so much, and unconditionally, by the way, why would he allow you to go through all this torment just because you practiced witchcraft and just because you were trying to find your way in this crazy, awful, sometimes good, world? I don't know about that. I don't think that an all-loving God will let you be tormented like that and then be like, well, come to me and I'll save you. I'll, take away all of your sins and all of your sadness and, all of this stuff. I guess to me, it just seems a little narcissistic and not really fair for a God to, tell you he's all loving and he'll save you, but kind of rejects you if you turn against him. To me, that sounds jealous and controlling, and I personally wouldn't want to worship a God like that. But that's just my opinion. Again, if Christianity works for you, awesome. I hope you are happy. I hope, you know, as long as you just don't hurt anybody else and just don't, you know, I guess push it on anybody else and expect everybody to believe what you believe. I don't expect anybody to really believe what I believe, you know. It just, to each their own, I guess. Well, thank you guys so much for watching. I actually had a lot of fun making this. Please let me know if you like this stuff. I'll do more commentary on more videos. I have some more videos saved on here. So if you want to see more, let me know. Like this video, comment, subscribe, do all the things, and I'll see you next time. Pleasant screams, bugs, and kisses. And don't forget, don't hurt people.